The phrase World War III evokes a unique, chilling fear, a dread that resonates deep within our collective consciousness. It's a phrase that conjures images of unimaginable destruction and global chaos, one rooted in the devastation of the last two global wars, conflicts that reshaped the world and left indelible scars on humanity. The memories of those past horrors serve as a stark reminder of the potential consequences of unchecked aggression and escalating tensions. Unlike past conflicts, today's world is more interconnected, bound together by intricate webs of trade, communication, and shared challenges, but also more divided and armed with weapons of unprecedented power capable of inflicting devastation on a scale never before imagined. The proliferation of advanced weaponry has raised the stakes of any potential conflict, making the need for diplomacy and de-escalation all the more critical. Real-world tensions, visible in daily headlines, fuel these anxieties, creating a sense of unease and uncertainty about the future. The constant barrage of news about conflicts and disputes around the globe serves as a constant reminder of the fragility of peace. As powerful nations clash over trade, territory, and ideology, engaging in a complex dance of diplomacy and brinkmanship, these clashes often play out on the world stage, with each nation vying for influence and advantage. Proxy wars and regional disputes risk spiraling into something far larger, drawing in major powers and escalating into a global conflagration. These localized conflicts can act as tinderboxes, igniting wider tensions and pushing the world closer to the brink. Just as they did in the early 20th century, when a series of seemingly isolated events triggered the outbreak of World War I. History teaches us that even small conflicts can have catastrophic consequences if left unchecked. To grasp the risk, we must examine the alliances, rivalries, and flashpoints, the complex web of relationships that shape international relations. Understanding these dynamics is crucial to assessing the likelihood of a wider conflict. Shaping our world as of June 16, 2025. We need to analyze the geopolitical landscape as it stands today, taking into account the current power dynamics and emerging trends. Despite technological progress, the same old forces, fear, ambition, and the quest for security still drive nations toward conflict, fueling an arms race and creating a climate of mistrust. These primal instincts, deeply ingrained in human nature, continue to shape international relations and drive the potential for conflict. The likelihood of a third world war is not a simple yes or no. It's a delicate, dangerous balance, a complex equation with many variables and unpredictable outcomes. It's a situation that requires careful management and a commitment to diplomacy from all parties involved. The stakes are higher than ever, especially in a nuclear age where miscalculation could end civilization. The potential for nuclear annihilation casts a long shadow over the world, making the avoidance of war an imperative for all nations. This video will explore the alliances, tensions, triggers, and deterrents that define our precarious moment. We will delve into the factors that contribute to global instability and examine the mechanisms that can prevent a descent into global conflict. To understand the risk, the potential flashpoints, and the overall geopolitical landscape, we need to first identify the key players involved. We must identify the main players, the nations that hold significant influence on the world stage. These are the nations with the power and ambition to shape the world, to project their interests, and to potentially disrupt the existing order. On one side stands the Western Alliance, a coalition of nations with a long history of cooperation. At the forefront is the United States, the United Kingdom, and Israel, bound by shared values, strategic interests, and considerable military strength. Opposing them is an emerging bloc, a collection of nations seeking to redefine the global power balance. Led by Russia, China, and Iran, united by a desire to challenge American dominance and reshape the international order to better suit their own agendas. The Western Alliance relies on deep historical ties forged through decades of cooperation and mutual support, and a commitment to democracy, the rule of law, and the maintenance of global security. The United States leads with unmatched military and economic power, projecting influence across the globe. The UK anchors Europe, leveraging its diplomatic and military capabilities, and Israel is a key force in the Middle East, navigating a complex and volatile region. The Eastern Bloc, meanwhile, is driven by Russia's military might, a legacy of the Soviet era. China's economic rise, transforming it into a global superpower, and Iran's regional ambitions, seeking to expand its influence throughout the Middle East. These countries possess large armies equipped with modern weaponry. They also have access to advanced technology, constantly developing new capabilities, and, critically, nuclear capabilities, a deterrent that raises the stakes of any potential conflict, or, in Iran's case, a nuclear program that alarms the world, raising concerns about proliferation and regional stability. Their leaders' visions often clash, reflecting fundamental differences in ideology and geopolitical goals. This constant friction is fueling global tension, creating a climate of uncertainty and risk. The rivalry between these two blocs is the central drama of our era, shaping international relations and defining the contours of global power. Understanding their interactions, their motivations, and their potential for conflict is key to assessing the risk of a new world war. The US, UK, and Israel form a powerful alliance rooted in shared history and strategic interests. The US provides global military reach and economic leadership, while the UK acts as a diplomatic bridge in Europe. Israel, America's closest ally in the Middle East, offers intelligence and regional stability. Together, they coordinate on security, impose sanctions, and counter threats from adversaries like Iran and Russia. Their cooperation shapes global policy, but also provokes resentment from rivals. This alliance is a cornerstone of the current world order, yet their assertiveness often drives other powers to form opposing coalitions. Iran, Russia, and China are forging a pragmatic partnership, united by opposition to US influence. Russia and China's no-limits partnership has deepened, with economic and military cooperation growing in response to Western pressure. Iran, isolated by sanctions, finds support from these partners, receiving technology, trade, and diplomatic backing. Together, they challenge Western narratives and build alternative economic systems to bypass US dominance. Their alliance is less formal but increasingly coordinated, especially in the face of shared threats. This bloc's rise is a major reason for escalating global tensions. Their cooperation signals a shift toward a more divided, multipolar world. The rivalry between these blocs plays out in real-world flashpoints, places where a spark could ignite global war. In Ukraine, Russia's invasion triggered a proxy conflict with the West, drawing in billions in aid and sanctions. The Middle East remains volatile, with Iran's nuclear ambitions and support for armed groups fueling clashes with the US and Israel. Attacks on shipping and direct strikes risk wider escalation. In Asia, Taiwan and the South China Sea are powder kegs. China's military maneuvers and US support for Taiwan heighten the risk of confrontation. A single miscalculation, an accidental clash or stray missile could trigger treaty obligations and rapid escalation. These are not distant hypotheticals, they are daily risks for global leaders. The world watches, hoping diplomacy prevails over disaster. The stakes could not be higher. A third world war would likely begin not with a formal declaration, a grand announcement of intent, but with a chain reaction. A series of escalating events stemming from a seemingly contained regional crisis. It's the unexpected spark that ignites a global conflagration. Military escalation at flashpoints like Taiwan, a region fraught with geopolitical complexities, or Ukraine, a nation already embroiled in a devastating conflict, could quickly draw in allies, triggering mutual defense treaties and alliances, expanding the conflict across continents, transforming localized disputes into a global struggle. Economic warfare, tariffs, sanctions, and resource blockades, the silent battles fought with trade restrictions and financial pressure, could spiral into open hostilities if national survival feels threatened, pushing nations to defend their interests through military means. Political miscalculation is a constant danger. A single misstep in diplomacy can have catastrophic consequences. Leaders under pressure may gamble on limited action, hoping to achieve a quick victory or send a strong message, only to trigger a global response, an overwhelming reaction from the international community. Nationalism and hardline rhetoric can trap leaders, making them prisoners of their own words and unable to compromise. Making de-escalation politically impossible, locking nations on a collision course. The collapse of arms control treaties and a new arms race. The unraveling of agreements designed to limit the spread of weapons, add fuel to the fire, accelerating the buildup of military arsenals. As nations build ever more advanced and destabilizing weapons, pushing the boundaries of military technology, each side's quest for security breeds more insecurity, creating a climate of fear and suspicion, creating a cycle of escalation, where each action provokes a reaction, leading to a dangerous spiral. In this climate, war becomes thinkable, a grim option considered in the corridors of power, even rationalized as necessary, presented as the only course of action to protect national interests. The world stands on a knife's edge, balanced precariously between peace and war, where a single error could unleash catastrophe, a devastating chain of events with unimaginable consequences. Understanding these paths is crucial to preventing disaster, to steering the world away from the brink of war. Despite the dangers, powerful deterrents have so far kept world war at bay. Nuclear weapons create mutually assured destruction. No leader can ignore the risk of total annihilation. Economic interdependence ties the fates of rivals together. War would devastate global markets and prosperity. Business leaders and ordinary citizens alike have a vested interest in peace. Diplomacy and international institutions, though imperfect, provide channels to manage crises and prevent misunderstandings. Even adversaries keep talking, knowing the cost of silence could be catastrophic. The memory of past wars and public desire for peace restrain even the most authoritarian leaders. The lessons of history and the will of the people are powerful barriers to reckless conflict. These forces do not guarantee safety, but they make war a last, desperate resort. The world's survival depends on their continued strength. If deterrents fail, a third world war would bring devastation beyond imagination. Modern weapons could level cities in days. Cyber attacks would cripple infrastructure worldwide. The human toll would dwarf previous wars. Millions dead from violence, starvation, and disease as global supply chains collapse. Nuclear weapons are the ultimate nightmare. A single exchange could kill hundreds of millions and trigger a nuclear winter, plunging the planet into darkness and famine. Even without nuclear use, the economic and environmental damage would be catastrophic, setting civilization back centuries. Trust between nations would vanish, replaced by chaos and endless conflict. The world as we know it would cease to exist. There would be no winners, only survivors facing a shattered future. The environmental fallout would accelerate climate change and destroy ecosystems. The horrors of such a war would haunt humanity for generations. Avoiding this fate is the greatest challenge of our time. The world stands at a crossroads. One path leads to destruction, the other to peace. The formation of rival blocs and rising tensions make the risk of war real, but not inevitable. Avoiding catastrophe requires leaders to choose dialogue over aggression, and to rebuild arms control and diplomatic frameworks. Communication, even with adversaries, reduces the risk of miscalculation. Addressing root causes like economic inequality and security fears is essential to lasting peace. Cooperation on global challenges, climate, pandemics, terrorism, can build trust and reduce rivalry. The lessons of history demand courage and compromise from today's leaders. In our interconnected world, no nation's security is isolated from the rest. The shadow of world war is long, but with vision and humanity, it need never become reality. The choice is ours, diplomacy or destruction.